Good afternoon, everybody. One of the toughest slots to be in, believe me, after a vendor night being first thing in the morning because you're all either tired or hungover or near the end of the day. So thank you very much for being here and for staying so late. Hopefully the sessions have been good. You guys have been getting some good information from everybody. We're going to talk about something a little unique, but I'm going to put a spin on it. So my name's Denny. I'm from the Royal Bank of Canada. I have a unique role that I focus on both identity and emerging technologies. So cool and innovative stuff. And as you've probably heard today at the show, there's so many new innovative things when it comes to identity and deep fakes. And KYC, knowing your customer or consumer, seems to be an appropriate topic now. So we'll talk a little bit about this. There's a lot of content on here because if you've watched some of our guys present like Ian and whatnot, there's not a lot of words on the slides and you go home thinking, what did he talk about? So all these slides are available for download. Bring them down, and my email address is at the end, and I'm not shy. Feel free to send me questions or if there's anything that you need. So we're going to talk a little bit about why you need to do the KYC part of it, why you need to do your due diligence, and DHS, Homeland Security is here, and they gave me a word today. We need a continuous source of truth. So if you think about due diligence and KYC, why do you want to do it? Would you hire somebody without interviewing them? Would you, well, it's funny, the last example was my wife. She's saying, would you buy a car without testing it? And that was a bad example because I have done that, actually not driven a car and bought it. But would you lend somebody money without knowing if they could pay it back to you? So there's things that you want to do, and you want to ask the right questions to see if you know these people. So from a banking perspective, it's a little bit different. One, we're mandated. We're told in most countries around the world that you have to collect certain data. You have to do due diligence to say, do you know your consumer? Can you loan them money? Can you borrow money from them? I came from the vendor space, and personalization was a huge thing. I'm sure any one of you have logged into a website and it says, hey, welcome, Denny. Last time you've logged in, I know Amazon does it because they always target things for you, and they know your buying patterns. They know about you as an individual. Helpful, yes. It could be a pain because now they know more about you than you probably want them to know. Identity proofing. So if I can collect attributes about you as a user, next time you log in, it makes my life easier to say, yes, you're a better candidate for a service, or yes, I can trust you as an individual. Last one, I'll leave it up to you guys to see if it's important or not, but research. Banks especially, we want to know your buying patterns, your trends, and how you're using our services. So this is one of those tech slides. Like I said, when you download it later, you take a look at it. I tried to pick 4 large areas that have requirements specifically for KYC. In the Canadian space, obviously the banks, anything that's a large money collecting organizations like casinos and accountants, crown corporations are versions of agency level. We have to do it. And there's fines if we don't, because we get audited and they say, do you know about your individuals? When you look at the U.S., personally, I think the U.S. has probably been the furthest ahead for anti-money laundering standards, where they've snuck in requirements for KYC. It's been around quite a while. Now, someone asked, well, is it only those big areas that do it? So I actually sat down and went through and went, different countries, different regions have started at different times. I was amazed to see how many of these countries have looked at it mostly from money laundering. Now money laundering, sex trafficking, all of those areas, you kind of want to know who you're working with. So a lot bigger requirement. The right side is something that I found interesting. These are the common attributes that I found across countries worldwide, what they collect on you. Driver's license, so the top ones are obviously government issued credentials. People, you're coming from a trusted source. There's some attributes in the middle. I'll leave it up to you if you figure out if they're appropriate or not, but name, gender, country of birth may or may not be relative, but may be relevant to your industry. Last part's very important. So if you provide localized services, again, in Canada, we have things that are required by province, by region. I can't apply for a liquor license to have a party unless it's from my specific area. We have legalized cannabis, so I can't buy it from a store unless I'm from that region or from that area. So if you get prompted by forums online that say, hey, I need this bit of information from you, read through the disclaimer. Most of us just hit the accept button at the end, but just be prepared, they're going to collect that. Same as anybody that scanned your badge today. Has anybody asked what they collect? Yeah, I see most of you going no. All right. So why do we collect this? The big thing that I bring out for collection, whoever's collecting your data, my personal recommendation, if you guys are doing it, please ask them for their consent. We're doing a project now with augmented reality and virtual reality at the bank. And even when I put on my VR glasses, I know things about the person's identity and how they do things. I have to pop up a disclaimer that they have to click on saying, hey, I'm collecting this about you, just so they know. And I'm using it more for the experience, but it is a reason. For most people that are onboarding new clients, so I've talked to most organizations, financial, manufacturing, they're bringing in both B2B and B2C scenarios. There's a registration. You've got to register that new user. So you want to know more about them. Are they able to work with you? Should they work with you? Real-time usage? I have mixed opinions. Mixed opinions when you're crossing the border. They're collecting data from you. They want to know your patterns. Working with one of the agencies today, they told me they do a continuous voice print. So if any of you have actually used services where they record your voice, some shops do it once. Our shop does it every time you log in. So I have a pattern. You might do it when it's cold, when you're tired, when you're sleepy. So you'll have different voice patterns. Continuous sources of truth are very important. The last two, on the left, a customer identification program in Canada, key. We have to have an envelope or a profile for all of our users. Not all areas and regions have it, but if you're from a specific group or whatnot, ping me and I can always let you know if it's a requirement. Customer due diligence, again, I sometimes have a problem with it because there's some profiling involved. You know, if you're from a certain region or if an area is known for certain types of activities, a due diligence trigger may get fired off, and then they may have to do extra research on knowing their consumer. They're doing it for the right reasons. You know, I'm sure all of you have been pulled aside for the random check at the airport. I get it. So I know it has to be done for security reasons. The use of it refers back to the previous slide a little bit. The top three that I found from any organization that I've worked with, both from the vendor space and now spending a lot of time with the banks, are the ones in the bottom right. Personalization, I want people selfishly to cater to me. Don't give me things and details that I'm not interested in. So KYC is very important. Authorization, banking example, we have a concept of a high net worth client. High net worth clients get better interest rates, better services, privileges, VIP perks. I am not a personal banking high value client, but I am on their insurance side because I have a lot of toys and things that I insure with the company. So they kind of debate whether I'm valued or not. Marketing, the unhappy face. I'm sure any of you that's been either to a conference or trade show, when you scan your badge, the first thing you think is, oh God, are you going to fill up my mailbox? Marketing can be relevant for services, awareness. Your flight's going to be late. So think of why they're collecting this data. So just things to keep in the back of your mind. KYC, when I mentioned earlier, the amount of money that is actually lost through money laundering is staggering. When I was working with Jeremy, he brought this up, and I didn't actually think of the reasons other than regulatory. From a bank, I'm told I have to do it. So I just follow the rules and march along accordingly. But if it lowers my risk of fraud and it makes my profile better, much happier. The fines, if I was breached or I was in the flow of a money laundering scam, I still get dinged for it. So I still get fined because I didn't do my due diligence. Second to last scenarios, reputational damage. I'll give you a funny scenario. If any of you saw Andre's keynote the other day where he did the recording, someone did the GPT session for him. One of my co-op students did it to me. I spoke at EIC a couple of weeks ago and he recorded my voice off the presentation. He used the new Microsoft tool that lets you mimic someone's voice. He set up a WebEx call for my own team. He didn't copy me on it. He invited the whole team to it. He told the whole team he did really well and that I'm buying lunch, which was great until I joined the call and I'm on my phone and I see that Denny has already joined. So reputational damages, yes, I had to buy lunch for the entire group because that's how he set me up. So yeah, just watch where your information's going to. So some people that it impacts, and I'm not sure, if you guys look at the left side of the screen, by show of hands, how many of you fall into one of those kind of categories? I'm just curious. Oh, not as many as I thought. Okay, fair enough. There are others. So if you think, should I or do I have to, your legal teams will definitely tell you. From our side, retail and manufacturing, dealing with our suppliers and contractors, are they reputable? Should I continue working with them? I know anyone, think of the due diligence you do when you book a hotel, when you travel, when you go to a restaurant. I'm sure most of you use a Yelp or Google Travel or whatnot. You're knowing your customer, your consumer, your client. The future brings us some different things. In the legacy world of banking, we have systems and tools that have been around forever. So we've always done things ourselves. Now we partner with second and third parties. So I have to know, do I trust those individuals as well? Open banking, whole different realm of information. I'm exposing credentials and content now to anyone that can write a mobile app. So if you can write an API to query me, I have to make sure that you're not going to use that data you're getting from me as a financial institution for somebody else. So something else to keep in mind, these are the things that you're going to start to see coming. So if you guys are going to collect data, a couple things to think about. Left side, make sure, and I'm sure you've heard this before, if you're going to collect data, make it fit for purpose. I'm willing to bet that I'm probably one of the few that scrolls through the terms and conditions of what you're going to do my profile when I log into an app. Nobody here has clicked through that, 17-page Apple agreement when you log into your Apple device. I'm okay with some information that they collect from me. I may contest some of the other ones. But understand that there's optional things on the right side that they may collect from you. Some of them are for authorization purposes. Utility bills, it's very common in the US now. When I lived in North Carolina, I didn't think it was uncommon for them to ask me for my electricity bill. If someone's going to be asking me for my Social Security, Social Insurance number, then I'd be kind of wondering, because unless you're going to use it for something or checking me, crossing the border, I'm doing something. So some information there. Best practices. DHS, I mentioned earlier, they use something called, they actually use the word continuous authoritative source. So if you're going to collect data on an individual, my personal recommendation, and that now coming from an agency that's doing some research, don't just do it one time. Give you an example, there's a voice authentication vendor that a lot of companies use. So when you call into their call centers, it says, please say your name or whatnot. They make you say a phrase. The reason they do that is because you've recorded one phrase. They have no idea. So if you come in and you're, like I mentioned earlier, stuttering, tired, cold, scared, there may not be a trip or a trigger that says, maybe this isn't Denny that's using our services. So the second point is, don't just do it when someone's new. So if you're collecting data, I'm assuming that every one of you wants to grow your business in your enterprise. Continuously work with your customers, your clients, your consumers. Know about as much about them as possible. AI is going to help us all out and provide us wonderful services, I'm sure. But honestly, when you walk into someplace, I kind of like the feeling of, hey, Denny, how's it going? Hey, last time you were here, you purchased something or other. So they know about me, they know about my patterns, they know my favorite credit card, coffees I don't drink. Another thing that I'm starting to see is people only do it when there's a suspicious event. By that time, it's too late. So you're collecting data because of an action. So you've performed an anomalous transaction. I keep picking on the banking world, but maybe I've transferred money, maybe I've bought too many of something. I don't think for a second that those online retailers don't know about you, that if all of a sudden you've ordered 17 pairs of Air Jordans, you're either a reseller or you've triggered some alert somewhere because they know about you. Best practices, the second to last one's really tough. Legacy industries, especially in Canada, banking and insurance, we did everything on paper. We have vaults and vaults and warehouses full of paper, and I hate to say it, we're digitizing them all now. We're scanning them, making them available. Please validate it. That brings up to the next point. Do it regularly. The thing you knew about Denny 10 years ago is not the Denny of today. Don't do it on a yearly basis. People start to expect it. And I won't lie, I mess with a lot of the systems on purpose when I know every month they're going to ask me to do something or collect information about me. So there's some common best practices. This I won't make you read through, but it was a scenario that I actually did at EIC. So I was thinking of a scenario. Imagine if some organization was asking you to do something and it's all automated. So no more interacting with people. I wanted to do something all online. So I'll play through it now. You don't have to read all the words that are there. So you log into your phone and you want to open up a bank account. So you talk to Siri or Google or whoever you're working with, and your assistant says, would you like to open up an account? I can validate that you have a valid cell phone. I can go to your telco, your telephone provider, make sure you have a valid service. If you're at your home network, I can make sure you have a valid home network. You're not, spoofing somebody's Starbucks network to do some online transactions. Maybe there's a risk there. I can see that the device is valid. I could validate your voice by any of you that have biometrics in your phone. So you may have your thumbprint or your face recorded. So now I can validate by you looking at your phone, are you who you say you are? So now I'm doing these things real time. So this is a utopia of a bank opening, for example. You've signed into your device with your PIN, or most of you probably use facial recognition or biometrics by now. So I know you are who you say you are, that no one's stolen your phone. So now it asks you for ID. I know in Switzerland they can use your passports. You can actually hold your phone over top of your passport and it uses the chip in it, and it'll use NFC to validate that it's a government device and your passport matches. Cool thing they do is they even compare your photo to your face. So now they make sure your passport photo matches your face. So for further identification there. But I've scanned it. It knows my address. Now it wonders, right now I'm in Vegas. Why am I opening up an account in the US? I'm not an American citizen. I have a social security number from living and working here, but do I need to open up an account? Maybe I should trigger some due diligence. So these are KYC artifacts that you can think you can automate. Based on a feed or information, you can have a trigger. In Canada, we have unique things where, in my opinion, it was kind of a screw up, but on your driver's license, the last 4 digits of your driver's license are your birthday. So if you ever see a Canadian driver's license and you go to a bar, as soon as a number of you may get carded, but if you're going to go to a bar and you hand in your driver's license, they don't have to look at your age. They just look at the last 4 numbers and it says year, month, day. So there's a useless bit of trivia. But because now my app said I'm a Canadian, I have to do due diligence. So now behind the scenes, my bank can do some extra work. Maybe I'm going to transfer some money into this account. So let's e-transfer 10 grand. I got $10,000 going in there. Any of you that's traveled, that's filled out that cross-border form that says, are you carrying more than X amount of dollars with you? Another due diligence. So KYC is going to prompt you through these scenarios and hopefully make your onboarding process easier. And some of these are actual things that we have in place at our bank. Some of them are in place at European banks. So this is a soup to nuts scenario. The last scenario was, again, my son comes in the room while I had this up on the screen. Dad, what happens if they don't like your name? I'm thinking, well, I'm sure there are scenarios, and you heard about AI here at the conference where they're doing profiling. It's not intentional. The AI hasn't been fully developed yet because of location or Mr. Escobar opening up an account in Vegas might raise some suspicion. So, but it's an interesting scenario to read through later on. Now we got the future coming. So KYC, we've talked about things that are on your government issued ID, like addresses and phone numbers and whatnot. What about some of these other things? I picked the first one because in tech support, the very first thing I thought when I got out of school and took a tech support job, I was on the phone all day long. The first thing they taught us is listen to typing speed. The reason they did that is because you ever been on a support call and the guy says, or the person says, please type this, and you hear click, click, click. The enter key is very distinct. So I knew if they were left-handed or right-handed on a conference call to know if they really were doing what I said, or if they were just blowing me off because they were waiting for me to tell them the final answer of what they had to do. So I'd be prepared for that. Know that it's a biometric, so it's there to stop bots. It's there to stop automated services. Gate is another one that a lot of banks are looking at. When you walk into a brick and mortar location, When you walk, everybody's pace, stance, action is unique. It's no different than, well, I was going to say thumbprint, but every individual, based on scenario, walks a different way. I'm sure any one of you walking into a grocery store walks differently than you do when you walk into a bank. Posture, what you're carrying, how you're leaning. Screen pressure. Phones, maybe not so much. A lot of us have touchscreen laptops. More of you are using kiosks, crossing the border and whatnot. Are you tapping quickly because you're annoyed like I usually am, or are you contemplating what to hit and reading the screen so they know about you as an individual? Gyroscope movements. All your phones have it. Now, because I'm working a lot in the AR, VR space, I didn't bring with me. The Oakley glasses that I have gyroscopes built into them. So based on movement, they know how I'm physically interacting with somebody. Kind of a fun technology. Voice patterns I mentioned. Banking scenario again. Me calling in and saying, okay, Google, please transfer $10 to my son for lunch is one thing. If I do it from my car driving on a freeway with the windows open, it's going to sound different. It might be different. It may not be me. There may be somebody in the car with me. So there you go. It's always listening. Mouse movements and click speed. Again, to stop the bots and the automated processes. So these are things that I see coming, and now spending a lot of time in the deep fake space, I'd watch for them. Don't think they're just trying to invade your privacy. They're doing it for your protection. Businesses always say, well, why do I need to collect this? Is this going to save me money or make me money? Think about the other things that you're using. You may have tools today, and it's a manual process like call centers. There's technology that'll save you so much time that'll do this type of identity proofing for you. It lowers the error rate by a long shot. The error rate of getting a human to go through and do due diligence, when I can have a system use AI and query a back end and look up a bunch of attributes, saves my call center a ton of time. SWIFT is a payment system that's used for transferring and wire transfers in the banking industry. It was an interesting number that we found that 72% of payment exceptions, please transfer or wire money to, oh, nuts, don't do that, take the money back again. That type of transfer error, 72% of the exceptions were done because of someone fat fingering an entry. If you can do that automated, save yourself some time. The data points I'll let you guys read through afterwards, just in essence of time. But think about, especially the third bullet point, integrations with other services. I know a lot of you have seen, please log in with your Google account, with your Facebook account, using your social media accounts. They know a lot about you guys. So think about what you're integrating with if your organizations are thinking of doing KYC and you're going to query a public source. We query trusted sources as a bank. Most banks in Canada, because we're paranoid individuals, we only use certain services. And now the last bullet point is, as much as you can automate will save you a lot of this manual error that I think you're going to run into. This is just a quick summary page of when you should do some collection on the left side. When you doubt things are going to happen, especially high value transactions. You're transferring $10 to someone for lunch money, maybe not such a big thing. You accidentally pressed the key and you sent $10,000, maybe you should do some due diligence. And then the automation side. Definitely some things to think about. So if you get a chance to download the slide deck, and I can give you some other examples afterwards. Sorry, there was so much content there, but KYC is one of those topics that's important to me because I like to know who I'm talking to. So even I'm sure as you're walking around, you're doing this because you're reading people's badges, and then you think, oh, where did they work? And you're doing it again. You want that interaction. It's very important to me as an individual, and I think it should be important to your enterprises too. So hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, I'm here all day, folks. I'm just kidding. Yes, sir.
Examples of where it would be important to collect gender anymore? It seems like it's kind of an irrelevant attribute. I don't know if banking might have something that, or maybe there's legislation that requires it. I don't know in some cases, but it seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, the question was when should you collect, or if you should collect gender. Even in some of the NIST documentations now, they've broken apart gender and sex. So they have multiple genders and only two sexes, Personal opinion, I don't find it relevant anymore. I can tell you in the retail space, there's a number of retailers that have done automation. So I'll give you an example of a retailer that I've worked with in the vendor space. By gender and attributes about me, when I walk into the retail location, I will immediately get notifications on my phone saying, hey, Denny, last time you were here, you bought cycling shoes, and that was 6 months ago. They look at my Garmin profile, and they see that I'm a male, and I put on X number of miles, and those shoes are only guaranteed to last X amount of miles. So they can target market to me, which I find kind of cool. When I go into the change room, it picks up my Spotify playlist, and it plays my music, and it'll adjust lighting based on gender. Kind of cheesy, but it's kind of a nice user experience. So do they need to collect it? I would say no, but let me tell you, it's a really good experience when I walk into the store and they take my money because I really need what they're selling me. It's a good question. Yeah.
What about the data minimization, right? Like half the sessions this week have been around like as little as you need, right? Just needs to go down the opposite direction. So how do you build a framework to do both?
Yeah, and that's that collect multiple times and verify often scenario. It was published last year, maybe the year before. As a bank in Canada, we are the largest bank, but we have more citizen data than the federal government because we know everything about you in every transaction. If it's manipulated or not, we do that continuous check and validation. So we're always trying to make sure we have the latest and greatest data on you. We're going to get it wrong. And that's why I think the fit for purpose comment, very important. So it's a tough one. We only collect what we need at the bank. Trust me, I don't want to store it. There's regulation of how much I can store and what do I have to do with it. So good question. Yeah.
You don't need to answer this question. You may not be able to.
Okay.
Do you guys get requisitioned by the government fairly often for this data or this data?
For the data itself or proof that we are doing it? And
Don't store for long, right? So there's this time to live scenario, right? So there is a moment, I mean, that data can be requisitioned, hey, if you see X come through, we want it.
yes.
As opposed to, hey, we want to extract from the data source, right? And then the other piece of that is
No, it's a very good point. And selfishly in Canada, we don't have a regulation that says I have to give it to you.
that's amazing. We should adopt that.
And I mention that because especially, so I have a good example for you. So we have, our provinces are split across and different ministers, the equivalent of a governor, will have their own rules for their own privacy. And we have one area that says their citizen data must reside in their province. So when they put their infrastructure in Azure Cloud, they went to Microsoft, who only had an instance in Western Canada, and said, we're not going to use you. And they said, well, you have 20 million citizens. And they went, sorry, if it's not on our soil, we're not using it. So they won't even let Microsoft replicate out of province for data. We're a very paranoid culture. We're polite and stuff, and we say sorry a lot. But no, the only time legal action, yes, you can request it. For the bank, it happens. Someone leaves, there's fraud scenarios, yes, happens. Can the bank come to you and say, please give me all your transactions and what you did in the last 6 months? Will never happen in Canada. Sorry. I know they can in the US. Yeah. Nope, very good one. Sorry. You had a question.
You were talking about the consent, but we have multiple levels of consent. Like I might consent to give you my first name, like basic information, but like going my gate, like all this, like would be nice to have multiple levels of consent.
You're 100% right. So the question was around levels of consent. So we do collect primary user data as initial consent. Yes, you can have my name, my address, whatever is needed for an account opening, for example. We have different levels of PII, personal identifiable information in Canada. And then as a bank, we have a chief data office that's ground me down into so many minor levels that yes, for high value transactions, I need this stuff. And we actually ask you individually. For any of you that have worked with the UK, GDPR has the wonderful feature of right to be forgotten. So if I've collected your data and you said, I don't want you to have it anymore, I have to trash all your data. So yes, we have to do that as well. That's a very good point. I forgot about that. Well, I thank you guys. I don't want to make you late for your next session, but if you see me around,